Too Hot for TV.
Welcome back to Doctor Who Too Hot for TV, the Advent Calendar. Every day this month, I'm joined by a different guest or guests to talk about a Doctor Who annual story from yesteryear. Today, I'm joined by Dave from the Doctor Who show. Hi, Dave.
G'day, how are you?
Very well, thanks. And also Rob from the Doctor Who show. Hi, Rob.
Hello.
It's wonderful to have you both here on the same pod at the same time, celebrating Christmas with me. So thanks for doing that.
Thank you. We're popping out from behind this little Advent door. That's how I pictured in my head.
Yeah. Now, if I could figure out a way to do some sort of interactive Advent calendar like the BBC used to do on their websites, I would, but I haven't got time for that. I've got 24 podcasts to record.
Oh, my God.
I can't learn coding as well.
That is crazy, but, you made the choice.
I did make that choice, for better or for worse. So today we're going to cover a story called The Sour Note from the Doctor Who Annual 1968, released in September 67. So, first of all, I want to know whether annuals, Doctor Who or otherwise, played a part in your childhood, plays a part in your adult life.
I can say that this has been a very interesting experience for me because I have to confess, this is the first time I've ever read any page of any annual ever in my life.
Oh, my God.
Really?
Really. I didn't have them as a kid. I kind of was a kid in the generation between the old annuals and the new annuals. I'm aware that they're a thing. I've heard podcasts like yours, Dylan, about them, and I've just never picked one up. I've never bothered buying one. I've certainly never read one, and I don't think I was quite prepared for what this was.
Excellent. So were you aware of the reputation of annuals?
I was aware of the existence of them, and I was sort of vaguely aware of the notion that people who may or may not have seen Doctor Who churned out just a thing every winter in the UK. But I couldn't tell you anything more about them other than I know there's one that's got the web planet on the cover that was in An Adventure in Time and Space. That's quite famous.
Yeah.
That's it.
What about you, Rob? Do annuals play any part in your childhood or life?
Yeah, I'm the complete opposite to you, Dave. I had a lot of annuals growing up, not just Doctor Who ones, but from world distributors. They'd put out all sorts of different annuals, either for long-running stuff like Tiger was a comic I used to get. That had an annual. Even one-offs like Starfleet, or I think I had a Marmalade Atkins annual. And I remember Kmart used to get them and have them for like 98 cents. And I had a whole collection of annuals. Even now, I've got all the Judge Dredd annuals from the 80s. I've got the Blake 7 annuals. You'd love those, Dave. Yeah, annuals were always a thing. And when I got into Doctor Who, it was like, oh, and they have annuals too. So it was a very natural thing to get annuals because I knew what they were. I'd had them for other things. Yeah.
I just have to say I haven't heard the name Marmalade Atkins for about 35 years.
Oh, really?
That was a thing from. I remember the show when I was a kid. This is a bad girl warning. I still remember the titles. Don't remember anything else about the show.
We should do an alternate galaxies on it, Dave.
Oh God.
Marmalade Atkins is the name lost on me, unfortunately.
Oh, Charlotte Coleman. She plays Marmalade Atkins. She's a very bad girl, and she has to be taught a lesson. And the teachers always fail to teach her a lesson. It's fantastic.
Fair. Which leads us nicely onto the Sour Note. So, Dave, you've obviously never read this before. Rob, are you aware of this one, or is this are you brand new to it?
I would have read it at some stage in the last 20 years or so, because I do have a hard copy of this annual, but I'd completely forgotten about it.
Excellent. Well, look, let's jump into the story. It opens rather abruptly with Ben, who is desperate to get some exercise. In fact, he's pummeling his own midriff because he's getting fat. So straight away, we're in with Ben. Does this feel anything like the Ben we know?
This feels like the opening chapter of the famous Five or The Adventures in the Faraway Tree. And Ben himself, again, I knew from reputation that these things were sort of aged down a little bit, even compared to Doctor Who on TV. But I wasn't quite expecting Ben to suddenly be acting like a 12-year-old. Rather than a 20-year-old. I was, from the first line, I was just baffled as to what was going on here. This was just what?
He is a cranky shit, though, Dave. I mean, he does come across like Ben.
Yeah.
But again, and this is the thing, like, if it was, I'm kind of fed up with being cooped up in the TARDIS with you guys, I want to stretch my legs, I want to get out, I want to see something, I could kind of get that, and that would work for Ben, but this whole sort of like, I need exercise, I'm so pumped up, I'm just a pent-up, horny teenager. It was just, I mean, takes a whole new meaning to the line about Ben tossing restlessly, really.
So they're in the TARDIS to say, we've got this sort of straight into the story. The Doctor puts his musical pipe to his lips because apparently they don't know what a recorder is back there.
That's something that I did pick up on, because it seems that nobody who's written for Doctor Who ever knows what a recorder is, up to and including the people who wrote the Three Doctors.
Oh, yeah, that is very odd. I wonder if the word recorder is actually copyrighted or something. Like it's a brand name, like Hoover and Vacuum. And maybe that's why they can't. I don't know.
I always called it a recorder. Just thought that was the name of a musical instrument. But it's something else here. It's a flute in the Three Doctors. I just did people at that age not know what a recorder was? That was very bizarre.
Hello, Future Dylan here again. Turns out the name recorder isn't copyrighted by anyone, so actually they just get it wrong. So twirling his pipe, Doctor Who approached the gleaming console of his marvellous conveyance and said, "My boy, never shall it be said that I ever repressed a single wonderful spark of youth," he said, laying his hand on a lever. "Exercise you want, and exercise you shall have. Now, if you'll just stop prowling about, hold on to the safety rail, and keep an eye on the vision screen, we shall see what we can do for one cooped-up young man." That is the words of the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton. How do we feel about the characterisation here of the second Doctor?
I think it's more like the first Doctor, to be quite honest with you. In fact, I was thinking, was this written, perhaps, given the time period, they'd have to do these things in advance, when Hartnell was still the Doctor, so they're thinking of how Hartnell would talk and call people my boy and all of this sort of thing?
So it's interesting. So this is September of 67. I mean, yeah, sure. Who knows when in 66, when in 67 or even 66 it was written. And I just think there's also a general lack of care on the author's part. We don't really know who the authors are because it's just staff writers within World Distributors that I think they've just gone, I've seen Doctor Who twice and this is what the Doctor Who's like, and I don't really know who this new fella is.
Yeah, it felt to me like somebody who'd seen a couple of Hartnell episodes and been given a couple of photos of Patrick Troughton and been sort of told, this is the new Doctor, or maybe even just shown the artwork that someone had done beforehand, because I always think of these as being written kind of like those stories in the Deep Space Nine episode where they go back to the 50s and all the crew are working in the writing thing, where the Klingon guy in non-Klingon makeup just goes, "Here's all the pictures I've drawn today, go write a story about them." And I feel like this guy's just being told, here's a drawing of Patrick Troughton. He's like William Hartnell, but funner, just right.
Yeah. We even get, later on, we get a few out of Troughton, which is just not something he does.
Yeah. So it was coming across at first as very Hartnell-esque to me, and I thought, this is what's happened. They've written it before the Doctor's changed over. But then I realised that the whole thing is sort of predicated on him having his recorder / flute / musical instrument, whatever they want to call it. So maybe Troughton was a thing by then, because that would have been a hell of a thing to shoehorn in later on as part of the plot. So maybe that wasn't the case. But yeah, you're right about it being sloppy. For the first half, the TARDIS is TARDIS, sort of Cushing style, this is TARDIS. But then it becomes the TARDIS later in the text as well.
Yeah, and the Doctor sort of goes from being a slightly odd, not quite Hartnell, not quite Troughton, to being a bastard fairly shortly.
Very true. Polly is very worried about this confrontation that's happening between the second Doctor and Ben, and she's worried neither of them will back down. They land on a planet. The Doctor doesn't know where it is, but he's very happy to let Ben go for a run. But Ben is very keen not to be watched by the Doctor while he runs for some reason. And the Doctor calls Polly Poll. Again, that's not a Troughtonism or a Hartnellism. That's something you might find Ben saying, right?
Yeah, he doesn't want the Doctor to see him run. Maybe the man boobs will be jiggling or something. I don't know what's happening there.
Again, it feels like they're writing Ben as about a 13-year-old who wants his privacy. He wants to be outside his parents' eyes. He's just been regressed about 7 years.
Yeah, it's very odd. And if the man boobs are present, how much weight has he put on in, the last couple of stories?
Because
Maybe...
I've got to confess, I have looked very closely at the pictures of Michael Cray shirtless in the Highlanders. And, he's got nothing to be ashamed of.
Well, that's because he'd been for his run, Dave.
Very true.
Clearly.
There's a season 4B where Ben just gets really, really fat, and then it's just him exercising for a long time, which, might have been a hit with certain corners of fandom.
I did like, though, this slightly sinister thing with the Doctor, and that's almost, it could be a Hartnell thing or even a very early Troughton thing where he's a bit odd. Yeah. If we just go somewhere and I throw the doors open, what are you going to do? Yeah. There's a slight sinister edge there. I mean, it maybe doesn't come across to a kid reading this, but I was sort of reading that into it. I thought, that's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, I couldn't work out whether it was the Doctor being a little bit malicious, the Doctor just being careless, the Doctor sort of having fun. But this idea that Polly's really worried about, that the Doctor's like, well, I'm just going to land wherever I land, and I'm going to open the doors, and I'm going to let Ben run out. And if he runs into a pool of sulfuric acid, well, that's just what happened.
Yep, shit happens.
Ben's off for a run. The Doctor thinks actually maybe him and Polly could do with some exercise, so they sort of go for a bit of a stroll, and they soon come across a solid metal grasshopper, at which point Polly felt Doctor Who stiffen. Make of that what you will. Immediately, Polly is worried that Ben has been eaten by this metal grasshopper, which I think is a bit of a jump, especially considering they point out very quickly that it's metal. So what do we think of this metal menace?
I had very strong Astro Boy vibes from this. It looked like something from and Rob, you're the expert on 80s manga and anime, so I'll defer to you, but to me it looked like something that would pop up in an 80s anime type TV series.
Oh, it could very easily, because we have illustrations of it, but I just kept thinking Web Planet, because, insect type things. I couldn't see past that.
When I picked the story, I picked based on the illustrations, and I thought, oh, maybe they've gone back to the Web Planet. Obviously not known for certain, but I thought, because the Zarbi were quite big in the first couple of annuals, because they don't really have access to the Daleks. It's Zarbi make it into a couple of them because they're the big hit, I guess, from early Doctor Who with kids, or they've just got the rights to them. Who knows?
And I feel like there was a lot of reference photos from the Web Planet floating around, because every reference book I've ever seen has got tons of photos of the Web Planet. So maybe that was just in their Doctor Who folder. They've gone, here, this is what alien planets in Doctor Who look like. Yeah. And that's just what they've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. They basically figure out that the grasshopper is a robot watchdog. The Doctor throws a stone at the creature, which eats it. So Polly was right, essentially, to worry that this metal thing was going to eat Ben, because it's a metal thing that eats stone and potentially eats men, sure. And at that point, high-pitched notes come through the air that Doctor Who goes, oh, that must control the robot. And the Doctor's able to use his pipe to imitate the notes and control the machine, at which point he wants to guide it to the TARDIS so they can find out if Ben has been eaten by the creature. I mean, at this point, I think we've got an issue of scale, because we don't quite know how big this thing is. We find out later when we see it next to the TARDIS that it's massive. But one would think if Ben was inside and alive, you'd be able to hear him, because it's not like he's digesting, I guess. I don't know. Like, it's just, I want to know, like, the mystery for me here is who's controlling this thing? What's it guarding? There's just no plot explained at all, is there, in terms of what this menace is?
Yeah, where are these notes coming from? Are they coming from the thing itself, or is someone sitting on a hill controlling it because they're watching the Doctor? How is that all happening? Yeah, agree.
Yeah, I certainly took it as somebody somewhere is controlling this thing with these musical notes or whatever. But yes, the scale of the thing does seem to be massive. But the other side of it is, look, I don't know, because I haven't read any other annual stories, but was there ever this sort of sense that they could kill off a companion in the annuals? Because I'm reading this as an adult and going, well, I know Ben hasn't been eaten, because they're not going to eat Ben in a children's story. But maybe if you're 5, that is a genuine thing that you're worried about. But I don't know. At that point, I'm like, well, obviously he's not been eaten. And sort of why it's easy for the Doctor to get the grasshopper to walk into the TARDIS rather than just when I say run, run. I also wasn't sure about, but as you said, Rob, they've made a contrivance over the fact that he has a musical instrument. So, key character point.
Yeah. I mean, it's some of the plot that they've actually linked together. Polly is understandably very nervous. We haven't really talked about Polly here, and there tends to be a tendency within these annuals that if you've got more than, well, basically they can't deal with having more than the Doctor and one companion, so one of them always gets sidelined. It's a bit like the Chris Chibnall era in that respect. So is there any recognisable Polly traits here?
I think there is. I mean, Polly is my favourite female companion of the 60s, so I have an interest in Polly, and I think I can read this in my head as very realistic to Polly because she cares about both these fellas she's travelling with. She gets worried. She's scared. I think, in as far as a kid's story goes, it's realistic to Polly. It certainly doesn't jump out as, oh, Polly would never do that. I can read this as Polly.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I mean, Polly is one of those characters who sort of does wildly lurch on TV between being the terrified screamer and the person who can design the chemical that takes down a Cyberman. And that's that's the 60s, fine. But yes, look, this certainly felt like the former. It never felt like the latter, though.
Yeah, fair. They reach the TARDIS. They get inside. The creature receives new instructions to attack. Polly's convinced that Ben's been eaten. And lo and behold, Ben's just in the TARDIS. He's had his run. He's had no idea there's this mechanical monstrosity after them. So the creature then attacks the TARDIS, and we finally get an idea of the size of the thing, which is at least twice the size of the TARDIS, and they dematerialise. And the Doctor says, the next time you want to take a sprint for exercise, would you mind running 20 times around the TARDIS inside, he said sardonically. Now again, I just thought, A, the TARDIS is massive, it must have a gym somewhere. Or, as the Doctor says, he doesn't even need to run around the control room. You could go for a run in the TARDIS.
I guess we are still in the era where the TARDIS was about 3 rooms.
Yeah, that's fair.
We hadn't even had the power room that we get in the Mind Robber yet. It's literally a control room, a bedroom, and that's it. So I do forgive it that. But yes, the whole convenience of the fact that Ben had gone for an entire run, popped back in the TARDIS, and no one had noticed was a little bit weird. But hey, it's a kid's story, isn't it?
Yeah, very true. Rob, what do you think of the conclusion to this exciting tale?
Well, I'm just looking at the final image, and wouldn't Clayton Hickman be traumatized by this 9-window TARDIS? I mean, this is an era where they're still on street corners, isn't it? Yeah. Like, surely the artist knows how many windows a TARDIS should have.
Yeah,
it's got
true.
9. I mean, they have gone to the trouble of having like the St. John's sticker on it on the opposite panel to the instructions and all of that. Yeah. So it's kind of Hartnell-esque.
Yeah. So we haven't really talked about the art. There's 4 pictures in this story. A couple of them feature the creature. 2 of them feature the Doctor. None of them feature Ben and Polly. How do we feel about the artwork as is present?
The one thing I did expect from the annuals was this style of sort of 60s pop artwork. They're perfectly fun. Again, they look like the cover of an Enid Blyton novel I would have had as a kid. It's very much of that sort of vibe. But look, I got a sense that it was an alien world. I got a sense it was a great big grasshopper, and yeah, job done, I guess.
What about you, Rob?
You could make wallpaper out of this last one. I mean, I'm sure the TARDIS is terrible, but you could do a repeating pattern of this as like really garish 60s wallpaper, I think.
Yeah.
I quite enjoy it.
Yeah, there is something about the style of art that's very kitsch and very, very appealing, actually. I mean, throughout this annual and all the others, they get things wrong again and again. But the things they get wrong, they're kind of endearing because it's this little bubble of when there was no brand management for the show or anything like that. And it just feels like this bizarre offshoot that nobody is watching and that is just vaguely related to Doctor Who. And sometimes you can tell what reference image they've used and it looks almost like screen accurate. And other times you're like, who is that person dressed as the Doctor?
Yeah.
It was very sweet and something of a bygone age. So, Dave, as your first experience of an annual story, how would you sum it up?
As a curiosity, it was interesting, but I wouldn't want to invest more than the 15 minutes I did on it.
Fair. Rob, any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's super annualish, And anyone who knows annuals will know what that means. It's super annualish. It's super 60s. That's about as much as you can say about it.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for joining me. It's been a pleasure to dip into a bit of 1960s Doctor Who spin-offery with you. I'll be back tomorrow with another guest, all guests, and another annual story. Until then, I've been Dylan.
I've been Dave.
And I've been Rob.
And this has been the Doctor Who Too Hot for TV Advent Calendar. Merry Christmas.
Doctor Who, too hot for TV.
Incidentally, a happy Christmas to all of you at home.